Alrighty, in respect of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Lauren. I am a Kelley career coach with the Kelley Indianapolis Career Services office. We're going to be talking about marketing career paths today, and I am joined here with Luke Keeper. He is one of our career peers, and he'll be answering any questions in the Q&A and also providing some resources during our session. We do have a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and get started. And let's really focus on our first topic of what is marketing actually, because marketing often gets confused with advertising and even PR. And there is a definition between the two that it's good to have an establishment. So the American Marketing Association, which is a professional group that actually works with all kinds of marketers, defines this as activities and different processes for creating and communicating and even delivering what kinds of value that customers or clients and partners can expect from a company. And that's very, very broad when we talk about it, because that can be done in so many different ways. So to answer an initial question that often gets posed, is marketing, advertising, and PR related? Well, the answer is yes, and it is also no. Marketing tends to determine the strategy behind all of this because it focuses more on numbers and research in order to determine a plan. Now, when we talk about advertising, that's often a byproduct of the marketing strategy, and it typically involves paid promotion of a company or a product or even a service. Now, PR is also a byproduct often of marketing strategy, and it involves more unpaid promotion of a company or product, usually by writing articles or getting featured in publications. So it's a little bit of a different approach to what advertising looks like here. Now, to focus a little bit on this, these lines are also becoming a little bit more blurred because companies are actually getting what we call full service. So they're taking all of these different aspects of marketing and advertising and PR, and they're providing it into one kind of package. So this is a way for them to be very strategic with their clients they work with. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those different functional areas and how these all work together just a little bit later. Now, as you might have known from the definition, it's pretty broad as to what marketing is, but there's different functional areas of marketing, and it can include things like content creation. It might be email or direct marketing. You might actually be doing media planning where you're working with television or radio, or even streaming services, social media marketing. I'm not even covering half of them. But the idea is that you specialize in some of these areas within marketing because there's so many different avenues for which people can get marketing sent to them. Now, of course, there's also things where you might be doing more of the strategy side of things, where you're doing market research, where you're actually analyzing these large data sets to determine different patterns or trends and key information that really helps develop what that strategy looks like. Now, Luke is going to include in the chat a list of some of the more expansive sectors of marketing. Oftentimes when you talk with a marketing professional and maybe tell them that your major is in marketing, they're going to ask you a little bit about that interest in those different areas of marketing. So it's a good idea to have a little bit of familiarity with them, but also use that as a chance to learn about what they might be specialized in, to learn if you might like it. So every year, Kelley collects full-time job data from all of our graduating classes, and we compile all of this information, including the job titles. So that way we can provide this to you guys, and you can see what types of roles people are actually taking. And of course, based off our last slide, you can see some of these specialized functional areas coming in. So as an example, you see someone who has taken a role as a social media strategist, someone who's working as a media buyer or an account manager. Most entry-level positions tend to have the job title specialist or maybe even coordinator in the title. For a lot of our research positions, they may include something like an analyst in the job title. That where you might see some of that with research. But the different functional areas are the big key part of that's the beginning. So you may see something like a marketing coordinator or specialist. Now, something that's interesting, a lot of people are surprised to learn, is that the title account managers and executives are actually very common entry-level roles when we talk about working in a marketing agency. And this is where you might actually serve as a point of contact for multiple clients as you assist with some of their marketing needs. Luke's also going to include a couple more resources here. Thank you, Luke, for sharing these. The first one is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And this is something published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics every year. And they report on all kinds of information, including what you might do in these particular roles. They also will include things such as salary that you might be able to expect, or even similar roles that are related to what you might be seeing here on the screen. He's also including a link to some of the common marketing job titles. So I'm not providing an exhaustive list, but he can definitely show you one that has some more on there. But this also can help you learn about the different promotional tracks too. So you might start off as a product research analyst, but you can also see some different promotional tracks that get you up into some of those upper level management positions or mid-level management after some time in the field. Now, as you might imagine, when people are looking for entry-level candidates, they're looking for people who have what we call soft or transferable skills. And a lot of these skills you're actually learning right now in your classes. You could be doing them in your part-time or even full-time work. You could be doing them in internships, or maybe even when you're working with your clubs or organizations. But the 6 most common skills that people are looking for with marketing professionals start with communication, and that's written and verbal, because you're going to be communicating marketing strategies. You're going to be writing and describing a plan to people and having to share that idea. So communication kind of goes over a lot of different categories. The other thing too is that you might be involved in a lot of group projects right now. Well, that doesn't stop when you actually go into the professional world. You do a lot of collaboration with team members, and not to mention you might be collaborating with people that are external from the company in order to help with maybe different product launches. Persuasion is another big one, and a lot of people are surprised to see this on the list, but this is all about getting people on board with the ideas that you're going to be developing and creating, especially when it comes to convincing someone of how to develop a brand strategy or tell their story to their clients. Problem solving, you can see this one on here. You're doing a lot of that in your classes now, especially with any assignment you have. But this could be things from a business and a marketing perspective. You might be actually managing and leading different ad campaigns. You might be measuring the results and the effectiveness of your marketing communications. And that might take some analysis to determine if it was successful or not. And of course, research and analysis is another big one. So you might be determining pricing or product placement. You might be doing some research projects to know whether or not the product has a strength or a weakness in different markets when you're exploring those. And then finally, critical thinking. So this is actually taking that information and developing it into something. And you may not always have clear guidelines or even layouts as to how it needs to look. You get to create that, and critical thinking really helps in those areas. But remember too that these are skills that can be developed in almost any area. So your classes are certainly one of them, but think about how the ways that you can actually do some persuasion, maybe if you're in a serving role right now, or maybe you're working in retail, how might you be able to convince some people of changing a process or procedure or communicating clearly with your different clients? That can help with a lot of those areas that you can practice those right now without having to be in the marketing profession. So a lot of people are wondering, well, this all sounds well and good. I see some job titles, I'm hearing what kind of skills I need to have, but what are people actually doing every day? That looks very different. And what Luke's going to include in the chat box is a link to something we call Candid Career. And this is a whole series of videos that have people talking about their different roles and the different tasks that they've taken on and projects and challenges. And the job descriptions that you see here on the screen are ones you can actually search for, because there are a few that I've pulled that are specific to entry-level marketing roles. And I'd encourage you to check those out because it gives you a perspective on what people like about their job, what's really exciting or challenging about the work. And you can also then start to compare whether or not that works well with your particular work style, or it might even not fit very well and you decide to pursue a different path. So I had mentioned before that jobs are plentiful, of course, in these areas, and it comes down to, well, where do these jobs exist? And when we're talking about marketing positions in particular, there's really two categories that these job opportunities fall into. And the first one I'm going to talk about is what we call agencies. And agencies are a business that actually focuses on working with multiple clients. And agencies tend to be specialized into the industry they serve. And they often have what we call full service, meaning that they do lots of different aspects of marketing. They could be doing email marketing campaigns or developing strategy and branding. So they provide a lot of different services to their clients. Now, some of these agencies will be very specialized, meaning that they're only going to handle one thing and maybe they only work with one type of client. So a good example of a specialized agency is a company here in Indianapolis. They're called StatWax. They're a digital marketing firm here in Indianapolis, and they actually focus exclusively on digital ad placement. So this is that functional area of marketing. So anytime you're on Google and you see an ad come up, they help place those. And their clients are strictly universities and colleges. So if you are, a manufacturing company, they will not work with you. They are only specialized in colleges and universities. Now, I want to give you another example of a company here in Indianapolis. They're called Hirons, and they are a full service agency, and they are doing things in advertising and public relations and even something called digital agency, which is like branding. What is that story that you have? And they don't care what kind of industry the company comes from. So they could work easily with people in higher education, or they could work with people who are in the retail industry. They're very broad. They have areas that they help specialize in. So this is a couple of examples here. Now, for those of you who might be interested in areas that cover things like market research, I want to introduce you to a company. It's called Kelley, and they specialize in helping their clients understand why people make the decisions that they do and the different activities that they have. And essentially, they're helping them kind of learn the ways that they can best market. So that way, a company can kind of outdo another organization. So Luke's going to include in the chat box here some of those companies and the links to them so you can read a little bit more about them. The benefit of working for a company like this is that you get to see lots of different clients. Things move at a very fast pace because people might need things very quickly depending upon what's happening with some of their marketing strategies. And a lot of people enjoy that. Now, the other half that we're going to look at is what we call corporate. And corporate marketing looks very different because the corporation that you end up working for, so I'll give you an example here of Cook Medical. They're not actually a marketing company. They're a medical device company, but within their organization, they actually have a marketing department. And that marketing department helps in a lot of different aspects. So they market different medical devices, they market the research that they're conducting. It's really, in a way, being very internal. So you only work with the company that you are you're assigned to. So what's kind of interesting is that companies may actually work with agencies from time to time, but often they have their own internal marketing department where they have those different professionals. I have a couple more examples here. Lids has their own marketing company, they're retail. Cummins does the same thing. Of course, we know they're manufacturing and specific with engine parts, and they also have a marketing department. So if you know that you have a specific industry of interest, this is where you can use a Chamber of Commerce website. Luke's going to include that here in the chat. And essentially what that is it's a directory of all kinds of businesses that work within a different region. And you can start to explore and say, well, what are some of these other areas? If I really know I want to go into the fashion industry, or maybe I'm interested in going into something, maybe even working for an accounting agency, but working in their marketing department, you can start to see where marketing exists everywhere. And this will help you focus on those and find those people. Now, the link that Luke has included is to the Indy Chamber of Commerce, but if you happen to want to look outside of that, you can search for the Chicago Chamber of Commerce, or maybe you're in Kansas City and you want to search there. Every city has a Chamber of Commerce. The biggest benefit to working within corporate is that you actually get to know your client and your product that you're promoting a lot better, because you're working with them on a daily basis versus in an agency where you might be within an hour working from a retail company to going and working in something completely different and solving a different problem. So it's a different change of pace for sure. Now the slide everyone's been waiting for: what kind of salary can I expect in these roles? Now, typically with entry-level positions, of course, there's always a range. And we get these salary averages, the ones that I have here on the screen are reported by our graduating class. And this is the data from 18-19. We are currently processing the 2020 graduate data, so we'll have that available in a couple of months. Luke's going to include the salary averages too. We have them posted on our website, so you can always return there, probably about November timeframe. But about 46,000 is around the entry-level position for these full-time marketing roles. Of course, it varies based on the amount of experience you're bringing. Internships certainly make a difference. And of course, the networking component also can change that as well if you are making impressions within the industry. And those are all great conversations to have with a career coach. So I would encourage you to always consider what you can do as far in advance, so that way you can make this salary look even better. Now, I'm also providing some information on the internship hourly wages. And of course, you can see these vary anywhere between $9 and about $22. 22 tends to be on the high end, and those are usually much larger corporations. Things that tend to fall a little bit in the middle, let's say anywhere between about $10 and $15 an hour, tends to be more of our average there. But regardless, it's always nice to know that these positions are having some good pay that are coming with them. Now, the other thing Luke's going to include in the chat box is a link to salary.com. And this is helpful because a lot of the data we collect here with our graduates are actually based here in Indiana, because about 90% of our graduates stay here in the state. So when you are looking maybe outside, let's say you want to go to Chicago, you would want to go to salary.com to look up the particular job title and also the location, because the location will change. Oftentimes you will see maybe a higher salary on the coast, for example, but also realize cost of living looks a little bit different there too. So it all sometimes can even itself out depending upon location that you choose. That's also another great conversation to have with a coach if you are needing some more assistance or maybe insight into what that looks like when we're talking salary. So I've talked a lot about what it is that marketing entails, where what kind of companies you can look at. Now I want to kind of switch gears and talk about, well, how do I get experience? And a couple of things that I want to share with you that are easy for a lot of our entry-level candidates to do is actually complete something called micro internships. Here in a week, we're actually going to do a full-blown presentation, so please join us for that. We'll also be recording it. But what we're looking at here are basically micro internships are project-based internships that last anywhere between 10 and 40 hours. And these can be completed at any time of the year. They're what we call on-demand hiring, so they appear very frequently. And Luke's going to upload a document on how you can actually set up a profile with a company that we have a partnership with called Parker Dewey. And you can start finding these micro internships today if you would like and begin applying to them. Many of them might have very quick turnaround, so you would be able to get experience. And these can be great because then they can help segue into what we have as the more traditional internships, right? So traditional internships tend to last maybe 3 to 4 months. They can often get extended, and they're usually completed in the fall, spring, or summer semesters. Luke's gonna include something here to also join the marketing club. So when you are gaining experience here within your industry, it's nice to be able to attend meetings with people who have similar goals as you. And the Kelley Marketing Club also brings in different speakers. They may also be able to do case studies. And so this is another way to gain some experience here. Now, of course, our office helps promote different internship opportunities, and you can see those in Kelley Careers, which is our job and internship database. So don't be afraid to check that out. There's plenty of opportunity there. So another question I get quite a bit is, how do companies actually hire for some of these roles? And I'm going to give you kind of a high-level overview of this because it certainly can change based on the market, but most marketing positions happen in what we call on-demand hiring. And that means positions don't really hire or follow a particular hiring timeline. They just become available when an organization says they need them. So what that usually means for an organization is that they're going to be hiring within 3 to 4 months of when they need someone to start. And this is really becoming more common as companies are adapting to the way customers need their services. So a brand new position could appear, within a few months of it actually getting off the ground and starting. So when you tend to be looking for a full-time job or an internship, you're usually looking anywhere between 4 and 6 months out from whatever your desired start date is, because you're going to be able to see those openings that you're actually going to be eligible to apply for. Now, for some larger companies, that timeline may be a little bit longer. And when we talk about larger companies, they tend to be any of the Fortune 500 companies where they have large HR offices who can actually handle doing much more longer, I guess you can call, strategy in their hiring timeline. And that can be anywhere between 6 and 9 months out. Now, the other thing to bring to note is a lot of marketing positions are not hired in, they don't have 10 positions available. They actually maybe have 1 or 2 positions. And we call this single position hiring. And that's because they tend to not have as many opportunities available, and most marketing companies are not going to come then to a career fair typically in order to fill a position. They actually get plenty of candidates through just traditional job postings or even getting hired through word of mouth. So when it comes down to it, how can you be successful with these different recruiting tactics, knowing that on-demand hiring and single position hiring is a thing? Networking, it becomes your best friend. And what we're including here in the chat box is a link to the American Marketing Association. They have an Indianapolis chapter. And Luke's also going to include a link to the American Advertising Federation, to the Indy chapter. And of course, this is a great way to get connected with some of these companies and the professionals, but you can also meet with a Kelley career coach to learn actually how to network with these people and leverage those conversations and turn them into something that might end up being a job offer. I want to thank everyone so much for attending today. We are done with our session. I will be staying on for the next 5 minutes, and Luke will be here too to provide any answers to questions you might have. This recording will also be going out as well. You'll find it on the Kelley YouTube page, as well as the Kelley Canvas page, and also the pre-business student Canvas page too. So thanks again so much for attending, and we're going to go ahead and stop the recording, but feel free to ask any questions in that chat box or in the Q&A.